The Borgia name evokes intrigue, scandal, and power, synonymous with a Renaissance-era rife with ambition and treachery. Originating from Spain, the Borgias rose to prominence in Italy during one of history's most turbulent periods. They were not just a family, they were a phenomenon that redefined what it meant to wield power within the church and beyond. At the heart of their legacy lies an unparalleled combination of cunning, charisma, and controversy that still captures the imagination centuries later. But with every triumph came whispers of treachery, and with every victory, the shadows of their alleged sins grew darker. Were they truly the monsters their enemies painted them to be? Or have centuries of myth and legend obscured the truth? As we look into their world, prepare to uncover secrets that lay hidden in the corridors of Vatican power and the courts of Renaissance Italy. The Borgias are not just a story of corruption. They are a mirror reflecting the complexities of human ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. Their tale is not one to be read. It demands to be lived. Chapter 1. The Rise of Rodrigo Borgia. The story of Rodrigo Borgia begins in Zataiva, a small town in the Kingdom of Valencia, Spain, where he was born on January 1st, 1431. Known as Roderick de Borja in his homeland, he was born into a family that was ambitious, but not yet steeped in the power that would later define its legacy. The Borgias, the family's Spanish name, were a noble but relatively obscure clan until Roderick's uncle, Alfonso de Borja, ascended to the papacy as Pope Calixtus III in 1455. Alfonso's rise to one of the most influential positions in Europe set the stage for Rodrigo's meteoric ascent, opening doors that few others could dream of accessing. As a young man, Rodrigo was sent to study law at the University of Bologna, one of Europe's most prestigious institutions. There, he earned a reputation for his sharp intellect and charm, traits that would serve him well in the cutthroat world of Vatican politics. But Rodrigo was not just a scholar. He was also an astute observer of power dynamics. He understood early on that the path to influence required not only knowledge, but also connections, wealth, and an almost Machiavellian sense of timing. When Rodrigo's uncle, Calixtus III, became pope, Rodrigo was summoned to Rome, where he was made a cardinal at the astonishingly young age of 25. Critics whispered that this was blatant nepotism, but even they could not deny Rodrigo's capability. Unlike other cardinals who relied solely on their family names, Rodrigo quickly distinguished himself as an administrator par excellence. He was entrusted with the lucrative position of vice-chancellor of the church, a role that allowed him to amass immense wealth and build a vast network of allies. But wealth and power did not come without controversy. Rodrigo's lifestyle was far from pious, even by the standards of Renaissance clergy. He was known for his love of art, fine living, and the company of beautiful women. These traits, while scandalous to some, only added to his allure. He became a figure both feared and admired, a man who could broker peace between warring factions in the morning and host lavish banquets in the evening. By the time Pope Innocent VIII died in 1492, Rodrigo was one of the most powerful men in the Catholic Church. His ambitions were clear. He wanted the papal throne, but securing it would require more than divine intervention. The papal conclave of 1492 was infamous for the corruption that defined it. Rodrigo reportedly secured his election through a combination of bribery, promises of lucrative positions, and sheer force of will. It is said that he offered gold and land to those who would cast their votes for him, outmaneuvering his rivals with a skill that bordered on theatrical. When Rodrigo was elected pope and took the name Alexander VI, Rome erupted in celebration or outrage, depending on whom you asked. For his supporters, Alexander VI represented a savvy leader who could restore the church's prestige in a turbulent world. For his detractors, his election was the ultimate symbol of the church's moral decline. But no one could deny the significance of what had just occurred. The son of a Spanish family had risen to the highest office in Christendom, and he would not squander the opportunity to cement his legacy. What made Rodrigo's rise so intriguing was not just his ambition, but his unapologetic embrace of power. He did not hide behind a facade of humility or holiness. Instead, he wielded his authority with the confidence of a man who believed he was destined to rule. In his eyes, the papacy was not merely a spiritual role, but a political office, one that demanded strategy, alliances, and, when necessary, ruthless action. As Alexander VI ascended to the papal throne, the world watched with bated breath. Would he bring stability to a fractious Italy, or would his reign plunge the church into further scandal? The answers would come soon enough, but for now, one thing was certain. The era of the Borgias had begun, and Rodrigo Borgia was at its helm. From the start, Alexander VI's policies prioritized consolidating power for himself and his family. Unlike his predecessors, who often sought to balance the competing interests of Italian city-states, Alexander used his position to further the ambitions of the Borgia dynasty. He appointed his illegitimate children to influential roles. Cesare became a cardinal, while Lucrezia was married off to noble families to forge alliances. This nepotism was not unique to Alexander, but the brazenness with which he elevated his relatives shocked even his contemporaries. In Rome, whispers of scandal spread like wildfire. Was the church, under Alexander's reign, more a family business than a holy institution? The Pope's relationships with European monarchs were equally scandalous. To maintain his grip on power, Alexander formed shifting alliances, pitting France against Spain and Italy. He famously supported Charles VIII of France in his invasion of Italy, only to later align with Charles's enemies when the political winds shifted. This duplicity earned him many enemies and cemented his reputation as a master manipulator. Yet, it was this same cunning that kept the Borgia family at the center of European politics for nearly a decade. But it was not just his political dealings that garnered Alexander his infamy. It was his personal life. While officially bound to celibacy, Alexander was known to have maintained multiple mistresses, even after ascending to the papacy. The most notable of these was Vanazza dei Catanii, with whom he fathered several children, including Cesare and Lucrezia. The scandal deepened with rumors that Alexander continued to hold lavish banquets, some of which allegedly devolved into licentious orgies. These tales, while possibly exaggerated, were eagerly repeated by his enemies, who sought to tarnish his legacy. One of the most infamous episodes of Alexander's papacy involved the so-called Banquet of Chestnuts. According to some accounts, this decadent event hosted by Cesare featured courtesans dancing among the cardinals in a shocking display of excess. Although the historical accuracy of this event remains debated, its mere existence in the annals of Alexander's papacy speaks volumes about the perception of his reign. Was he an indulgent ruler, blind to morality, or was he a victim of smear campaigns by his rivals? Amidst the scandal, Alexander VI also proved to be an effective administrator. Under his rule, the Vatican expanded its bureaucracy, and Rome saw significant improvements, including public works projects and fortifications. Alexander's patronage of the arts helped the Renaissance flourish, with artists such as Pinturicchio decorating the papal apartments. Yet, even these achievements were often overshadowed by his relentless pursuit of personal and familial power. His determination to carve out a legacy for the Borgia family led to a series of ruthless policies, including assassinations and betrayals orchestrated by his son Cesare. The darker side of his papacy reached its zenith with the redistribution of lands in Italy. Alexander excommunicated rivals and used his position to declare wars that conveniently benefited his children. The church, under his leadership, became a tool for political domination rather than spiritual guidance. For many, this marked a profound crisis of faith, a time when the sacred seemed subjugated to the profane. In the end, Pope Alexander VI's reign was a paradox. He was a man of extraordinary political acumen and administrative skill, but his scandals cast a long shadow over his achievements. Was he the embodiment of Renaissance decadence, a pope who epitomized the era's moral ambiguity? Or was he a necessary player in a ruthless world, using every tool at his disposal to survive? As his papacy progressed, the line between myth and reality blurred, leaving behind a legacy that continues to captivate and horrify history. The The death of Pope Alexander VI in 1503 marked the beginning of the end for the Borgia dynasty, but the path to their downfall was as tumultuous and enigmatic as their rise to power. Rodrigo Borgia, who had ruled as Alexander VI for over a decade, succumbed to illness under mysterious circumstances. Some claim his death was the result of malaria, while others whisper of poison, a method the Borgias were often accused of wielding themselves. This ironic twist in history left many wondering, was Alexander a victim of the very treachery he had so often been accused of orchestrating? Without Alexander VI's cunning political maneuvering and immense influence, the Borgia family was left vulnerable to the vultures circling the papal throne. Cesare Borgia, once the indomitable commander of the papal armies, found his ambitions unraveling almost overnight. Cesare had pinned his hopes on controlling the next pope, but the conclave elected Pope Pius III, a man unlikely to bow to the Borgias' whims. Although Pius III's reign lasted only 26 days, the tide was already turning against Cesare. The election of Pope Julius II, a sworn enemy of the Borgias, sealed Cesare's fate. As Julius II ascended to power, he swiftly dismantled the Borgia stronghold in central Italy. Cesare's alliances crumbled one by one, and his once loyal captains defected to Julius. Cesare himself, a man once likened to a Roman emperor for his sheer audacity and military prowess, was betrayed during a campaign and captured by Spanish forces. The man who had orchestrated so many betrayals in his rise to power was now a victim of the same ruthless politics. Stripped of his titles and territories, Cesare was reduced to a mere fugitive, fleeing for his life. Even in captivity, Cesare's story took another dramatic turn. He escaped from a Spanish prison in 1507, displaying the kind of ingenuity and determination that had made him infamous. Yet, his return to power was not to be. He died later that year in a skirmish in Navarre, fighting as a mercenary. His death, at the age of 31, marked the end of the Borgia dynasty's male lineage. The once mighty Cesare, who had dreamed of founding a kingdom, fell in an unremarkable battle, far from the grandeur of Rome. While Cesare's fall was a spectacle of military defeat and betrayal, Lucrezia Borgia faced a quieter, yet equally poignant, fate. After Alexander's death, she retreated to Ferrara, where she had established herself as a duchess. The scandals that had once plagued her name began to fade, but her life remained tinged with tragedy. Her health declined, and she died in 1519, leaving behind a legacy of beauty, intelligence, and controversy. Lucrezia's later years were marked by piety and charity, a stark contrast to the accusations of poisonings and political intrigue that had defined her earlier life. Despite the dramatic ends of Alexander, Cesare, and Lucrezia, the Borgia name lived on, not in power, but in infamy. Pope Julius II ensured that the Borgias' influence was erased from the Vatican, but the stories of their decadence, corruption, and ambition became legend. Writers, artists, and historians immortalized them, often exaggerating their crimes to enhance the allure of their narrative. Yet, even in their downfall, the Borgias managed to shape history. Their enemies may have rejoiced at their demise, but the whispers of their exploits continued to echo through the halls of power in Rome and beyond. The downfall of the Borgias was not just a story of individual failures. It was a reflection of the volatile world of Renaissance Italy. In a time when alliances shifted like the wind and power was secured by blood and betrayal, the Borgias were both a product and a casualty of their age. Their demise serves as a chilling reminder of how quickly fortunes can turn, even for those who seem untouchable. As the dust settled over the ruins of the Borgia dynasty, one question lingered. Were they architects of their own destruction, or were they scapegoats in a world that thrived on scandal and deceit? Their rise and fall may have ended centuries ago, but their story remains as compelling as ever. A cautionary tale of ambition, power, and the price one pays to reach the pinnacle of influence.